Welcome to Do Your Dailies, the podcast designed to help you on your journey of addiction recovery. We're going to go through the big book of AA and use our collective experience, strength, and hope to help you understand what addiction recovery really looks like. So grab some snacks, sit back, press play, and dig deep. Thanks for being here. Hi, everybody, and welcome to this episode of the Do Your Dailies podcast. I'm your host, Chris Wilkins, and I've got my friends Joe and Dave here with me, and we're going to continue on from our last episode. Gentlemen, how are we doing today?
Doing well. Looking forward to jumping back into the doctor's opinion today and getting some good understanding of the core concept of the disease.
All podcasts have advertisements, and I'd like to advertise for something. And that is, I don't know if it's before you listen to this or after, but get out and go for a walk. Look up at the sun. If it's cloudy, look up at the clouds. Just walk with gratitude and just get out and go for a walk. That's my advertisement.
I'll echo that. I'll sign off on that. I'll double down on that, whatever phrase you want to use. This morning, I did a guided meditation, and it was on gratitude. And so even as you said that, and we didn't talk about that prior to. And so I'm one who thinks everything happens for a reason. And sometimes I don't like that idea. I don't like that. But the more and more I go throughout this life, I realize that there is a purpose. There is something to say about all those experiences that I've had. And so literally meditation this morning talking about the sun. And my goodness, when we were doing this, the sun wasn't up yet. And so it's one of those things where we have to close our eyes and imagine it, picture it. But being outdoors, fresh air, clean air, even with the inversion, but getting outdoors, it's so crucial to our mental health. It's so crucial to recovery. It's crucial to our well-being. So, yeah, thank you for that advertisement. Any thoughts after we stopped last time in our kind of our first section of the doctor's opinion? Anything to note or recap? Perhaps our listeners, there was an assignment or there was an invitation to write out your history. That impacted me, Dave, as you talked about that. And so to you listeners, if you did not do that, maybe it's an opportunity now to press pause and just spend a few minutes going back objectively and contemplating what alcoholism has done, or alcohol use, or substance use, or certain behaviors that are problematic. How has that actually gone? What led you to those things, and what was the effect? What were the effects of those choices? And then press play again here.
And I would add to that we are specifically talking about the obsession of the mind. So what I mean by that, and I'll reiterate what I challenged folks to do, was to go back and be very specific on how your obsession, specifically your obsession, has played out. We're very good at addicts, alcoholics, and talking about others. But one of the most powerful things I ever did was to go back and see how my obsession actually appeared and manifested itself. What strategies, how clever was it? And in retrospect, I can go back and take a look and say, what did it tell me? And then what did I do? And the reason that is so important is because last week time, Joe read a part over here on the doctor's opinion, and one word that I've got circled is to recreate. Mm-hmm. In order for me to recreate my life, and that's what it says in here, if they are to recreate their lives, that is precisely what we're doing. We are recreating. We are giving ourselves license to live in a different way. And prior to starting this, we were talking about a situation where someone wanted to go back and replay all the alcoholic history. And I just want to be very clear, as we recreate our lives, and Chris, you brought up a point that the hope is that we don't have to carry that burden for the rest of our life. And so what I'm suggesting here is if we start with as simple as going back and say, how did my brain work under the influence? I have to know that, or I can't begin the recreation process. But I'll start with the end in mind, and the end in mind is that I recreate my life and I can live full and I can raise my head up. There's a saying that I always used to say, I still do: head up, shoulders back. Walk with dignity. Walk with confidence, walk with serenity, but head up, shoulders back. Because what this disease would do is have us lower our head, look at the ground, be full of shame, walk with it, relive our resentments every day that just drives me deeper, deeper into the hole. And what this whole project is about is a revitalization, a recreation, to have us lift our heads up, put our shoulders back, be in relationship, live a different life, look through a different lens, and therefore have different relationships and going forward. So I'm just kind of priming the pump here with, this is where we're going. Now we're a long ways from getting there, but it's a daily process. But I just want to give people hope, because hope with a strategy has some real strength to it.
Well, and going back to that idea of recreating our lives, I really, this isn't just a short-term kind of process. It's for me, the recovery journey is a journey that opens up every morning and allows me to go through a day where I get to still creatively go in and learn, grow, and continue to progress. And I hope that invitation is one that everybody takes, is because I think we're all very uniquely tied to labels that are not always accurate. And my hope is that we can gain a better clarity around the journey of what does this really need to look like, so that I can recreate my life and I'm not burdened by those labels that make me look at the ground and get overburdened.
My gosh, okay, I'm going to lob a grenade. So I'm 66 years old. I still train hard. My son is visiting from Puerto Rico. He says, let's go to the gym. You want to go to the gym? I said, sure, I'll go to the gym with you. I said, how about we get up early and go for a hike? Mm-hmm. A tough one. And of course, he had phone calls and business. He couldn't go. And I said, so I'm going on my second workout. Let's go to the gym. Well, what does this mean? Think about this. If I have a son, that means somehow I was in a relationship and had a wife. Still have a wife. Been married 41 years. I'm not bragging. I'm just saying recovery has given me a relationship 41 years long. I have a son. He's in our home. He wants to actually be with me, as opposed to as far away as possible. And we got in the truck together to go to the gym. And here's the truth. I had to look away. I had to look to my left. I was driving. Why? Because my son was in my truck with me. And he wanted to be with me. And we were going to go work out together. I could care less about the workout. We went to work out together. He turns 37 in a couple of days. And his family's going to come, and he has a wonderful family. My point being is we can talk all kinds of stuff, but in the end, my son was in the truck. Why? Because he wanted to be with me. Why? Because I'm a different human being than when I was drinking. He would have never been anywhere close to that vehicle. That's what I'm talking about when we say recreate our lives. I'm not promising you're going to be independently wealthy and be on Broadway. I'm saying you're going to have relationships. You're going to have people with you. They're going to want to be with you. We laughed so hard with the whole family there. I mean, it was just so wonderful. And that's what this program brings us. Heartfelt wholesomeness. Wholeheartedness is the way I would put it. We are going to learn to live in a wholehearted manner. And that's where we're going with this.
I love that.
It's just the truth. That's what happened yesterday.
Man, Dave, thanks for sharing that. Those relationships are what we want. That's our currency. We sometimes in life we're chasing these things that we think are success or we think are going to make us happy. And when we interact with or interview people that look back on their lives and are asked about regrets or things they're proud of, that repeated over and over and over again I wish I'd spent more time with my family, or I wish I'd cultivated and chosen relationships more. It's not I wish I'd worked harder or more or those kinds of things. Those regrets come from lost opportunities or missed opportunities. And so to the listener, to tap into that for a moment. There's an opportunity right now that if something needs correcting, to take a step in that direction of correcting. I can look back and go, I wish I hadn't done this. Yeah, sure. There are some things that had I made different choices, my life would have been different. I don't know if I'd be happier, better off, or something like that. We don't know. But if I want something different, it doesn't help me much to think 10 years from now, what will I do then?
Right.
A year from now, what will I do then? It's today. This is what I have. And so if I have a strained relationship, no matter what that looks like, am I able to make a phone call today? Am I able to send out a text message or an email or write out a letter? Can I send something out there to lay the groundwork for some change that I want? But I love what you said. He wants to be there with you.
Yeah.
The workout is secondary.
Yeah. I purposely I passed the gym to go to another one.
Yeah.
He said, aren't we going to this one? I said, no, we're going to the other one. He said, how far is it? And I said, it's a ways. I just want to stay on the track.
Yeah. Yeah.
I work out every day. Well, we passed 2 gyms because we belong to a chain. We passed 2. Yeah, I like this one over there. What are you talking about? Don't worry about it. Let's keep talking.
I just want to be with my boy.
Yeah.
I just want to be with my daughter. I just want to be with my spouse, my partner. I just want to be with my friend.
Yeah.
And time stands still when we're with those people that we love. If we're present, if we can set those distractions to the side. Years ago, I've got a few really close friends, and years ago we'd moved away, and we're coming back to visit, and we were planning a couple's dinner. Where are we going to go eat? And there was arguing over where we were going to go, and what some people liked, other people hated. What some people liked, others were like, I just had that last week, or what, those kinds of things. And this one guy says, I don't care where we eat. That's not the point of this.
Yeah.
You're coming to town. I want to spend time with you. Mm-hmm. And it just, the way I felt receiving that message, just hearing that,
yeah. I
was in my early 20s. I'm never going to forget that. Well, until my brain starts to go, right? But the impact that had on me as a human being. And those are the kinds of things we do with family, right? I just want to spend time with my family. But by extension, these friends, these close people who are family to me, mm-hmm. right? But yeah, we so often feel so disconnected when we're down, when we have anxiety, depression, when we're hurting ourselves, when we're stuck in those habits and those patterns. We pull away for so many reasons. And so I love that you started this off with that story, Dave. It's an invitation to all of us to what can I do today to just take one step forward in that direction, whatever it may be. So, well, let's dig back in.
The doctor's opinion.
Now is this Roman numeral that's got to be 28? XXVIII. If I'm not right, then forgive me, but right at the very bottom, I want to pick right up there, if it's okay. And it says this. I know we touched on this last time, but men and women drink essentially because they like the effect produced by alcohol. The sensation is so elusive that while they admit it is injurious, they cannot, after a time, differentiate the true from the false. To them, their alcoholic life seems the only normal one. They are restless, irritable, and discontented, unless they can again experience the sense of ease and comfort which comes at once by taking a few drinks, drinks which they see others taking with impunity. That stands out to me, something that stands out to me in that is just kind of the slippery slope where you boil the frog in the water. You know, over time we get accustomed to certain things, and then when that avoidance, that freedom from, I don't mean true freedom, but that idea of freedom from my problems, because I'm numb, I'm checked out, I'm impaired, there's a part of us that desires that. We want to go back to that sense of clarity. Again, not real, not true, not authentic clarity.
There's a perfect example of an invitation to support what we talked about up front, where it said, time, they cannot after a time differentiate the true from the false. So again, I'm going to reiterate the challenge. Go back and write down with a pad of paper and a pen where the obsession of your mind, and I choose that word specifically, eluded you, diverted you to what's the true from the false. What was absolutely false and you thought it to be true, or what was true and your obsession convinced you that it was not true anymore. Your drinking wasn't a problem, or tonight I'm just going to have one, or I'm just going to go have a beer, or what, it doesn't matter. How did your brain kick in and convince you about the true and the false? That was, again, one of the most powerful things. And then which is interesting is right after that, the result of that not being able to tell the true from the false, that we are restless, irritable, and discontent. And I wonder how many would sign up and say, yeah, I'm there. And when I'm drinking or thinking about drinking or recovering from drinking, that's where I am. I'm restless, I'm irritable, I don't know what to do, I don't know how to do. I have some vague recollection of the last 3 days, but not really. I don't even know where my car is. Why am I $3,000 lighter in my wallet? All that stuff. So I think that's a very important piece.
After they have succumbed to the desire again, as so many do, and the phenomenon of craving develops, they pass through the well-known stages of a spree, emerging remorseful, with a firm resolution not to drink again. This is repeated over and over, and unless this person can experience an entire psychic change, there is very little hope of his recovery. On the other hand, and strange as it may seem to those who do not understand, once a psychic change has occurred, the very same person who seemed doomed, who had so many problems he despaired of ever solving them, suddenly finds himself easily able to control his desire for alcohol, the only effort necessary being that required to follow a few simple rules.
Now, before we actually go on, let's maybe help define for our audience what is meant by a psychic change. How do we define that? Because a reader can read that and it's very, very vague. It's like a psychic change. Does that mean I have to become a psychic? I mean, do I have to be able to read a phenomena that you can't really see or measure, or is there a deeper meaning of what that means?
Well, to me, it's interesting. On that page, I've got it circled 3 times. Psychic change. Mm-hmm. There's a reason it's there. Mm-hmm. 3 different times. And you read something, I think, that plays into this psychic change. What are we talking about, psychic change? We're talking about changing the way we think. Psychic is mental change, so I want to change. So, but a little bit before it says, after they have succumbed to the desire again. So the desire was there, the obsession of the mind was there, but after they succumbed, in other words, the thought took me to the drink, and then it says the phenomenon of craving develops. So once I took the drink, then all bets are off. So if I don't have the psychic change, then I'm going to continue to drink. And once I take even a sip, the craving kicks in. and all of a sudden the allergy is just, it's off to the races. It's after. So I want to make a distinction. In the context of this book, a craving is not before I drink. Because then, and the reason I say that, then I've got to try to watch and look at everything that's going to give, when will a craving come? If I identify it as the obsession of the mind, now I can do something about the way I think. I've always found that when someone says I'm triggered or I have a craving, it's almost like, along with it, is I have no control over that. And that's just not true.
Right.
So it's that obsession, and if I change the way I think or what I do about this obsession, this psychic change, and I'm very much simplifying this, then I'm on a path of what I would call repeatable and effective action. I recognize it, I gotta change, I've got to do whatever it takes not to take that first drink, and then I go from there.
I think it's also important to note that this isn't the first time that the statement "phenomena of craving" has actually occurred. Now, what the doctor's referring to here is this is attached to the allergy of the body. This isn't about the obsessive quality of the mind. This is literally about the allergy of the body getting activated, okay, and it creates a phenomena of craving where that idea that we talked about last time is the idea of more. That's the reaction. That's the allergy. It creates a phenomena of craving where I don't just stop at like one drink. I just keep going and going and going. That's also important to actually note related to what we're reading here. There's a difference between the craving that Dave was talking about related to the obsession of the mind, and then the phenomena of craving that the doctor's referring to in this page.
Are we clear on that?
Well, I talk sometimes about this idea that I don't control the thought that pops into my mind, but I have control over what I do with that thought.
Yeah.
So in our everyday lingo, I think we talk about I've got this craving, and we almost minimize it. We almost make it seem very different than it really is. So this would sound good, or that would sound nice, or this would really blah blah blah. But you're saying that's not craving.
Exactly.
That's the obsession of the mind,
the obsession.
the thought. And so we want to separate those two. And I want to add in the thought, again, that pops into my mind. Along the way, as we get better, healthier, stronger, more resilient, all those lovely words, we have an ability to resist those thoughts, to do something with them. This thought popped into my head. Hey guys, I need to just say this. Can I just share this with you? Or I need to use a coping skill. Or I need to call a sponsor. I need to call a therapist. I need to, those kinds of things. Press play. Go for a walk, like you said, outside, right? Let me get some sunlight, some fresh air. Those are the interventions that we can implement into our day-to-day life to prevent the craving from actually coming. Meaning, like you said, that comes when you take the drink. That comes when you take the drug. Or the behavior, right? Some of those things are so incredibly powerful. But we want to distinguish between those two, because I think that gives us a lot of ability to recognize we're not powerless. That we're just not, I'm an alcoholic, or I'm an addict, or I'll always be this way. I'll never be able to change. I think that's one of the fallacies that part of the brain tries to convince us of.
There's the obsession.
To stay stuck.
So you've just given, in my opinion, a wonderful example of a psychic change. On one hand, I just heard a song, I want to drink. Well, I'm an alcoholic. No, I'm not. Versus, I just heard a song, I need to call somebody. That's the shift. Mm-hmm. As opposed to sit there and let this obsessive thought about drinking camp and reside there. What you were talking about is, okay, call somebody, go for a walk, whatever it is you have you've created as a strategy to offset it. That's what we're talking about. So I will add very strongly here And Joe has mentioned it many times. This is a program of action. You are not a bystander. You're not in the stands. You are down in the paint, very much taking action and saying, I must do this different. This is not going to happen osmotically. It's got to be very much.
Yeah, you got to show up for it, and you got to show some action, and that starts again with how do we fundamentally start taking these changes, and it really fundamentally goes to our thinking first. How are we seeing this? Are we seeing our problem as like a situation where we're stuck and we're just bound to repeat it over and over again, or do we see the availability that we can we have the opportunity to change and get out of that stuck state? But there's specific things related to what Chris just read, those few simple rules.
Well, and I would submit maybe some of the listeners right now are saying, well, that's all well and good. I just don't know how to do this. Where do I even start? Well, we have some answers for that.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And you read simple rules there at the back. It said you're required to follow a few simple rules. I have a note there. It simply says the 12 steps. This is the action program. We'll talk more about that later. I'll go on reading.
Please.
So you might feel like this person. Men have cried out to me in sincere and despairing appeal. Doctor, I cannot go on like this. I have everything to live for. I must stop, but I cannot. You must help me. Faced with this problem, if a doctor is honest with himself, he must sometimes feel his own inadequacy. Now that's a very honest revelation. Although he gives all that is in him, it often is not enough. One feels that something more than human power is needed to produce this essential, and I've got that word circled, and again, psychic change. So this is where the doctor introduces, maybe for the first time, something beyond ourselves might have to come into play to help me come up with this. So I'm not sure what the action is. There are people who can help me, but there's something, he says, more than human power. All right, I'll go on. Though the aggregate of recoveries resulting from psychiatric effort is considerable, we physicians must admit we have made little impression upon the problem as a whole. Many types do not respond to the ordinary psychological approach. So he's just saying there's a lot to this that we don't understand, and there's more to be discovered. I do not hold with those who believe that alcoholism is entirely a problem of mental control. I've had many men who had, for example, worked a period of months on some problem or business deal which was to be settled on a certain date favorably to them. They took a drink a day or so prior to the date, and then the phenomenon of craving at once became paramount to all other interests. What did he say? They were working on a deal, they took a drink, and then this thing of craving kicked in. And once they had one, notwithstanding how powerful or how much money they could have made on the deal, the phenomenon of craving at once became paramount to all other interests. In other words, I'm right at the very precipice of putting together this great big deal. I decide to have a drink. The phenomenon of craving, the allergy that Joe mentioned kicks in, and the whole deal is blown.
Yep.
These men were not drinking to escape. They were drinking to overcome a craving beyond their mental control.
Now, that's the definition right there of the allergy of the body. It is literally a situation where they were drinking to overcome that a craving that they don't have any mental control over. I mean, that's the definition of alcohol. In the sense of the physical aspects of it. It's like an alcoholic can't stop. Most people don't understand that, and they're befuddled by it. This right here helps us understand what's the befuddlement. It's like an alcoholic can't really qualify what is given to us right here. Okay? This is incredibly helpful to help those who are suffering with any addiction to truly understand that this isn't just about alcohol. This goes to every substance related to chemical addiction. So The men were not drinking to escape. What they were dealing with was they were dealing with a condition of literally their physical body that put them beyond the capacity of mental control. So that's the allergic reaction. It takes it out of a perception of being able to have control, and they are just off to the races. It's just more.
So someone in my past said, well, Dave, just stop. If this be true, if what Joe just said be true, well, then why'd you have the first one? Wow, what a novel idea. Well, I had the first one. Why? Because I have a Herculean, to the nth power, obsession of the mind. My mind will come up with 50 scenarios a second as to why it's okay for me to drink. That's where the mental control can come in. Before,
Yeah.
I had a fellow, and he came to treatment, and he stayed, and he said, I've got this. After 30 days, he said, I've got this wired. He said, I'm good. He's in mid-40s, extremely successful, very, very bright. I've got this. I said, okay, great. 4 weeks later, called and said, Dave, I can't believe I've been drinking for 3 days. I said, okay, what do you want to do? Oh, well, can I come in? Yeah, let's get detoxed and come on in. Another 30 days. I've got this. I said, you had it last time. Do you have it more this time? He said, yeah, I've got it more this time. Okay. 4 to 6 weeks later, calls again. I've been drunk for a week. I said, really? What have you noticed about it? It just keeps getting you. Comes back in. For what now, the third time? Goes back out. 4 to 6 weeks later, calls again. Dave, I've been drinking for 2 weeks now, whatever. And he said, can I come back in? I said, absolutely not. We're done. I said, if you're going to call me anyway, why don't you call me before you drink as opposed to after? Correct. What a novel idea.
Yeah.
I said, you keep telling me you have it. The truth about your drinking, your obsession keeps telling you and convincing you that you can do it, that you'll call Dave sometime next week, which is true.
Yeah.
You did. But this thing's going south. I said, what's been the wreckage of all this? He said, I don't even want to begin to tell you. He said, because each time I just go deeper. I said, it's worse. And so the allergy that Joe's talking about, it's not consistent.
Not at all.
It just gets out bigger excavation tools, and it just digs deeper and deeper. And I said, why don't you put down the shovel? And he said, what are you talking about? I said, you're in a deep hole that you have dug, and you want to hold on to the shovel. And it was just fascinating, and so you're right, Joe. You're absolutely right. All right.
That made me think, just to add on, so often in the rooms and in sessions and groups and things, there's the conversation about rock bottom, and I heard somebody say, rock bottom is when you quit digging. And that's always just fascinated me, the amount of influence that we have. I don't know if it's pure control. It is. I think it's control, but that concept can be problematic. But when I quit digging, that hole deeper and deeper and deeper. When the pain has been so much, so intense, that I go, I can't go back here. I can't allow this to happen again. I can't allow the suffering to become even worse.
And isn't it remarkable that our obsession would convince us that the pain is not really there?
Mm-hmm.
Or it's less than, well, that was an anomaly. That was Tuesday. I did that because I ate Chinese.
It wasn't that bad.
It wasn't that bad. It's because, well, yeah, but it was Thursday and, Bob didn't call, or I ate Chinese, or the lawn, or that guy just doesn't know. It doesn't matter. It's fascinating. And
it's sunny, let's celebrate. It's cloudy and rainy, let's commiserate. It's I had a success, let's celebrate. Something was really hard, I need comfort. Like either end of the spectrum doesn't. And every step along the way, if I want something badly enough, I'll justify it. What's this, 6 ways from Sunday? Let's go 12 ways from Sunday, right? To the nth, like you said, to the nth degree. If I want something bad enough, I will get there. We've got to have that stopping technique, whatever it is, or the slowing technique.
Okay, so here's a wild thought, and I've used this many, many times. So we talked about the obsession of the mind and how clever and crafty and deep and all of it. And so what that is that is part of our brain that is so creative and so passionate. Mm-hmm. And another aspect of this that I just want to put on the table, we'll talk more about it later, is what if I could repurpose that passion, that creativity? What if I could recruit it and turn it into an obsession of life or of gratitude or of relationship? Because it's still all my brain. I've just got to redirect it to a much more positive thing. And is that possible? I will tell you, I have experienced it. I've witnessed it over and over and over. I just got a call 2 days ago from a guy that, I mean, we're talking abject alcoholic in his late 40s. I mean, he has he's made millions, burned his life to the ground. And he called me and we just had this conversation about repurposing again. And he just picked up this job. And anyway, my point is he said, Dave, I'm completely refabricating the way I think. And I'm out to recruit this obsession to now be an obsession with gratitude and service and the way I do my job and what I can bring to the table. And I said, good for you. I said, it'll be quite a journey, and let's talk in 4 weeks' time and see what's come of that and how that is going. And so that again leads into what Joe was talking about, this psychic change and saying, yes, 12 ways from Sunday, but how can I turn that 12 ways from Sunday into it being a better father, a better, husband, a better wife, whatever we are? And we don't think about that as alcoholics. All I think about is a one-way street to get me to drink. And think about this for a minute. If you think about the waking hours that you're either thinking about acquiring, using, or recovering from your drug of choice, that's a lot of time during the day. And if you had that time then to repurpose it to crafting a life that you would like, I mean, there's a real possibility there. And it's a reality for many. My point is it's available to all. So there's not a limit of what I call recovery oxygen. It's infinite. We can all participate. So I just kind of keep seeding this with some hope and what the reason that we're going through this, we're identifying it. But I want to give our listeners a real tangible thing that, this is possible. Mm-hmm. And again, you may not know how today, but that's why we're here.
Right. Well, and I even wonder, to take that on, if I knew today, if I'm in that position of making a decision, do I want to make a change? If all the answers were given to me, what would I do with that?
Yeah.
Would I actually put them to use?
Paralyze you.
And I've viewed myself in some ways in the past as a sponge of knowledge. I just want to soak it all up so that at some point in time it will come in handy. But if I don't ever use it, then what good is it? And I'm not suggesting we reject things that we aren't going to use today as far as skills and resources and that kind of a thing. But we've got to put it to use. We've got to actually use those skills, those simple steps.
There are many situations which arise out of the phenomenon of craving, which cause men to make the supreme sacrifice rather than continue the fight. The classification of alcoholics seems most difficult and in much detail is outside the scope of this book. There are, of course, the psychopaths, so he's going to give us a few examples of alcoholics. The psychopaths who are emotionally unstable, we are all familiar with this type. They're always going on the wagon for keeps. They are over-remorseful and making many resolutions, but never a decision. That's a critical piece. There is the type of man who is unwilling to admit that he cannot take a drink. He plans various ways of drinking. He changes his brand or his environment. There is the type who always believes that after being entirely free from alcohol for a period of time, he can take a drink without danger. There is the manic depressive type, who is perhaps the least understood by his friends and about whom this whole chapter could be written. I would just challenge everyone. So there's 4 different types there, and maybe there's a little bit of all of us, but the one always believes that after being free from for a time, I can have a drink. I played with that. I had 2 years and went out. I'll tell that story another time. Then there are the types entirely normal in every respect except in the effect that alcohol has upon them. They're often able, intelligent, and friendly people. All these and many others have one symptom in common. They cannot start drinking without developing the phenomenon of craving. This phenomenon, as we have suggested, may be the manifestation of an allergy which differentiates these people and sets them apart as a distinct entity. It has never been by any treatment which we are familiar, the doctors are familiar, permanently eradicated. The only relief we have to suggest is, I'm going to repeat, the only relief we have to suggest is entire abstinence.
Now, this is why we've got AA known as an entirely abstinent-based program. Okay, because he can't get any clearer around what he's saying here. He's saying the only way to avoid the allergy of the body, you've got to stay away from alcohol. You've got to completely remove it from your life, because of the effect of the phenomena of craving and how it just pushes us, as it was saying earlier, into greater and greater levels where we just continue to give up the fight. It's drinking alcohol for these types, it injures them. But yet their mind convinces them that, hey, this time it's going to be okay. You'll have control. You won't lose the house. You won't lose the wife. You won't lose the kids. You won't lose any of these things that you lost before. Okay, and all of that is the great lie. So I love this statement because for many people, they don't understand the significance of like the disease. And when I take the opportunity of like spelling this out to my sponsees and then other people, it's like a light comes on. They've never been shown this before, and they're like, oh, that makes sense now.
I'd like to lob another grenade into the deal here. So I fully support what Joe just said, and I'm going to add to it. We're talking about alcoholics in a variety of formats, all kinds of, but they come down to one similarity, that once they start, they can't stop. But I'm going to suggest also that you may say, well, I'm an alcoholic, but I can take this pill. I'm an alcoholic, but I can have a little, I can have a hit off, some weed or whatever it might be. I don't care what it is. My personal experience is if I put something in my body that reduces my ability to think and compromises my brain, eventually I will get back to my drug of choice. I have proven that over and over again. So when it says entire abstinence, I believe that wholeheartedly. Now, someone most assuredly is going to say, well, what about an operation? And I just had to. And what I did is I said, hey, when it comes to the pain meds, I want to go to my wife because I'm not an opiate guy. But I am a guy that has, a very strong allergy. Mm-hmm. I will just stand firmly on the ground of entire abstinence. And if wine was your deal, you can have a pill. Or pills were your deal, I can have a glass of wine at dinner. I'm just saying all roads get back there. I've watched over 7,000 people come through treatment, and I'm telling you, it's the same. So I think that's a very, very important concept.
Well, that's the vulnerability. And Dave, I appreciate you being that clear about it, is the vulnerability puts us into a state to where there really is no safe other ground to continue to get in that altered state, that gives us that sense of ease and comfort that was talking about earlier. It's like the road will always lead back to the main issue of the problem. It'll always lead back to alcohol. You can't safely kind of juggle within your life will like, okay, I'm going to do this because it's not a problem. Alcohol's a problem. I'll just avoid that. It's like, no, what we're really talking about here is when we're talking about a psychic change, they said this in the page earlier. It's like they said an entire psychic change. It's like our thinking has to uniformly shift away from this idea that, getting in an altered state is okay. It has to be along the lines of like that, those simple tools, those plans that I have to put into action have to actually resemble a complete transition away from what I used to be like into what I want to be like.
Exactly. I'll share a story because I'm a lot of those types of alcoholic up above, but I did take on the notion of after some time. So I had, I'll fast forward this. I had 2 years at one point. And I'm going to say I had 2 years of sobriety. I had started down the road of recovery, actually doing some of the work, but not to the depth it needed to be, as evidenced by what happened. So a friend of mine, we'd gone to college together, we'd taken jobs together, professionals, all that, and he was coming back in town, and he called me and he said, hey, would you like to go, let's just go get a couple beers and catch up. Let's go get a couple beers. To the average person, the normal person on the street, how many is a couple of beers?
2 or 3.
2 or 3. And I said, well, here's the fact. And I didn't say this out loud, but I said, I've got well over 2 years. We're in Utah. Now, I challenge you as the listener, listen to what I say and see where the obsession of my mind come into play. This is a real story, and I want you to identify the obsession of the mind. I'm in Utah. What about the beer here? And this is a long time ago. The beer is 3.2% alcohol. In my opinion, it's a complete and utter waste of time. I was not a beer drinker. Why? Because you have to drink a lot, therefore you have to go to the restroom a lot, and you just get full and it's a waste. But my mind said, a couple of beers. After 2.5 years, I can do that. I said, well, I don't want to go to a bar. I'll just buy a few beers and let's go up the canyon. We'll take some chairs, sit by the river, and we'll talk. He said, okay, I'll pick you up. And so we go to the convenience store, not the liquor store. We go to the convenience store. I said, I'll buy. So I walk in and I walk out, and he looked at me. I got in the vehicle and he said, wow, not much has changed. And I said, what are you talking about? He said, you bought a case of beer. I said, you wanted a couple of beers. He said, you bought a case of beer, Dave. Do you hear what I'm saying? Okay. Let's go. So we went up, we sat down, and I had the beer, and I kept it. He was driving, so I kept it on my right side. Why? Because I didn't want him to get hold of it. I don't care about drunk driving. You're not going to have my beer. We sat down. I put the beer on away from him. I took one out, turned away from him, and popped it. And he leaned forward with his hand out. And I said, what do you want? He said, well, I'd like a beer. And I said, didn't you get some? You didn't bring any? He said, are you kidding me? You bought a case. And I reached down, and it was like I was a kid giving away my prize marble or something, the last piece of candy. And I gave it to him. And what was fascinating to me is after 2+ years is how I drank the beer. Now, I didn't notice this at the time. This took someone helping me recognize and doing an autopsy on this relapse. I didn't just pop it and sip and have a conversation. I turned away. I was like a voracious animal. And that led to a several days. So here's the thing. No, I didn't drink beer, but it was a wonderful gateway. It kicked in Joe's allergy.
Oh, yeah.
What do you think happened after that?
More.
Went right, not beer either. And we went right back to fifths of whiskey and drinking out of the bottle, and that's where I'll end the story. But I'm just saying the notion of time, if you haven't done the work and the craving kicked in, and we always, there's a cliche initially I despised when people would say, my disease is over there doing push-ups in the corner. I proved it.
Yeah.
I proved it. And today I'm very transparent about it. Mine was over there. And it took me, what was fascinating to me, it took me very little time to get back to the place as deep. You talked about the bottom, Chris. It took me a very short time to get back to that place where I tried to stop the first time. What I thought was as deep as it was, and the compression of time was incredible. How fast I got back there.
Yeah. It's not the same amount of time, and we talk about it's so hard to build up like a positive reputation. It takes so much time to build up something good, and it can be destroyed so quickly. And recovery is the same thing.
Yeah.
You know, you can have 2.5, 5, 10, however many years it is, and lose it in a matter of hours.
Yeah.
You know, based on some of those decisions that we make in such short time.
So, Dave, your story is very telling in that as you were telling it, you know, the thing that really struck me is that the qualifying factor was like a couple of beers, but you go and you get a whole case of it, you know. And what's fascinating is the guy points that out to you, and it doesn't even register, and it continues to not register. That is so classic as far as kind of how powerful the obsession gets, is because even in the reality of things being pointed out to us immediately, it's just like there is no registration of it. It's like, okay, all right.
What's your point?
Yeah.
What are you talking about?
Because the point was lost. It was like a couple, and you've got a case. Yeah?
And it's all mine.
And it's all mine. Yeah.
I thought we were catching up. Why
Yeah.
are we talking about the beer? Why are we talking about the alcohol? How you been doing? Just a distraction.
Yeah.
You know? Like,
What? It's beer.
Yeah.
And plus it's from Utah. It's just a side of lemonade. Come on, get a clue, moron.
yeah.
We got catching up to do.
The thing for me that I also found very educational about that is just how quickly you go from a state of like just adherence to like, yeah, we'll connect, to like total possession over what you just purchased. It's like you can't have enough. Because there isn't enough. So it's commodity that's limited, right? And it's like, and then it's just the reality of how quickly things go from 0 to 100 is just unbelievable. And like, we're just in for the ride at that point. Once it hits our system, it's just like, phew.
Well, and it took someone helping me. And we were dissecting this thing and looking at my obsession. And he said, Dave, did you ever think about what went through your friend's mind? So you'd been through all this together. He comes back. He wanted to connect with you. Back to your story, Chris. It wasn't about the dinner. Well, in my case, it was all about the beer. I could have cared less what he had to say at that point. I'd given myself permission. He was the gatekeeper that opened the gate. Hey, he's in town. It makes sense. And so this guy pointed out to me, he said, I wonder if we called him, what would be his version of the story?
Fascinating.
You know, that you traded that case of beer for his relationship with you. That it very quickly became much more about this over here than catching up.
Right.
And I'd never thought of it that way. And I will add to that, there was a point, and my wife asked me this question early on. Jeez. As a side note, as we're doing this work, folks, there will be angels cross your path to help you in spite of what you may or may not have done. And they will stay with you. And there is no way that you can offer gratitude to them going forward. It was completely beyond my scope of understanding why people would help me, given what I was, and stay with me. But one of those angels is my wife. And she asked me one time, early on, David, do you understand, even in a small way, what it's like to be on this side of this equation? To be on this side of what you're doing? And I just stood there and I looked at her. And even the obsession that I had was not capable of coming up with an answer. And I just sat in silence, because the cold hard truth was, no, I have no understanding whatsoever what it's like to be you in this equation while I'm going through this. And all I can say is thank you. So that just hits me today. You know, the gratitude of someone that will cross your path and put their hand out and never, and I mean never, take it away. And the question that begs asking, Dave, would you do that? And at the time, the answer was no. But the time came when I learned how to put my hand out. And that's what this program, that's what Step 12 is all about. And all I can tell you is the wealth of what happens when you put your hand out and help another. What happens to you inside is far beyond my ability to express in words. I'll just leave that at that point. But
thank you, Dave. That's meaningful, and I agree with that. I think there are angels that show up, cloaked as like family members or loved ones, but there's also those heavenly ones that we don't see. You know, because I believe that just as much as I believe the earthly ones showing up for us as well. Because I've had things that I just can't explain related to my recovery at all.
Yeah, someone asked me once, what do you think angels look like?
Mm-hmm.
You think they're white with wings? And I said, it's been my experience, they look just like the person that's sitting with me right now.
Right. That being said, can I jump in and read?
Please.
Okay. This immediately precipitates us into a seething cauldron of debate. Much has been written pro and con, but among physicians, the general opinion seems to be that most chronic alcoholics are doomed. What is the solution? Perhaps I can best answer this by relating one of my experiences. About 1 year prior to this experience, a man was brought in to be treated for chronic alcoholism. He'd been partially recovered from a gastric hemorrhage and seemed to be a case of pathological mental deterioration. He had lost everything worthwhile in life and was only living, one might say, to drink. He frankly admitted and believed that for him there was no hope. Following the elimination of alcohol, there was found to be no permanent brain injury. He accepted the plan outlined in this book. 1 year later, he called to see me, and I experienced a very strange sensation. I knew the man by name and partly recognized his features, but there all resemblance ended, for a trembling, despairing, nervous wreck had emerged, a man brimming over with self-reliance and contentment. I talked with him for some time, but was not able to bring myself to feel that I had known him before. To me, he was a stranger, and so he left. A long time had passed with no return to alcohol. When I need a mental lift up, I often think of another case brought in by a physician prominent in New York. The patient had made his diagnosis, decided his situation hopeless, had hidden in a deserted barn, determined to die. He was rescued by a searching party and in desperate condition brought to me. Following his physical rehabilitation, he had a talk with me in which he frankly stated he thought the treatment a waste of effort, unless I could assure him, which no one ever had, that in the future he would have the willpower to resist the impulse to drink. His alcoholic problem was so complex, his depression so great, and we felt his only hope would be through what we called moral psychology, and we doubted if even that would have any effect. However, he did become sold on the ideas contained in this book, He had not had a drink for a great many years. I see him now and then, and he is a fine specimen of manhood as one could wish to meet. We earnestly advise every alcoholic to read this book through and through. Perhaps he came to scoff. He may remain to pray. William D. Silkworth, M.D. So, that's his experience. That's his truth. And what's profound in that is that I get a very clear sense from the doctor that he was very honest about his own reality of like what he could and couldn't do for addicts and alcoholics. But what's fascinating about this is he saw this movement like drastically affect the lives of these men that were so stuck in the allergy of the body, the obsession of the mind, that when he actually started seeing it and he started seeing the rapid change as he testified against it, it just changed his perspective. And we are blessed to have his experience, because it was through his experience that Bill was able to share that with Bob, and it started a movement that we are still benefiting from today.
I find it fascinating that here's a doctor steeped in experience. He admitted 2 or 3 times that there's a power greater that we just don't quite understand. And that last statement, many came to scoff. I am a scoffer. I was a scoffer. I was one who would make fun of. I was petrified of other alcoholics. Is that what I'm going to be? And then I saw those that had recovered, and I couldn't get my head wrapped around it. What would be the result of all this? And he puts it simply, perhaps those that came to scoff would remain to pray. Somehow call on, because he mentioned it, some power greater than human power. Perhaps they would remain to pray. I just think that is such a powerful and succinct way to put it.
Mm-hmm.
I can't shake this thought from earlier as you were talking about just a few minutes ago when you were talking about, Dave, the hand out, the hand up, that extended hand, and how it is very important for us to notice others where we can help. But also, when we're in that space of struggle, when we aren't okay, to recognize the hands that are extended to us, for us, on our behalf, and to reach out and grip them, allow those helps in. Pride, shame, avoidance, refusal, all kinds of reasons, all the excuses to not do the work, to not accept the help, the support, the love. Put those walls down. Let the ego go. It's not as simple as that. But allow those angels to come into your life, to manifest, to serve.
Yeah.
And I think along the way, I know I'll come to understand that differently, because it's always evolving the way that I look at this life of interacting with others, this life of prioritizing what's really important to me, what my values are, what my purpose is, why I'm here. And I pull symbolism out of places that it probably wasn't intended, but I think it's so powerful to recognize that we don't always have to be the fixers. We don't always have to be the ones who are helping other people.
Yeah.
It's okay to admit that it's just not a good day, or I'm struggling, or I've messed up, or whatever it is. And to dig back in,
So with that, I'm going to leave I'll lob another grenade. So I'm going to leave a challenge with those that are listening. My wife and I were talking the other day, and she said, I'm going to be a day maker today. I said, okay, you've got my curiosity. I said, what's a day maker? And I'm going to leave it at that. I challenge you to dig in and figure out, and what is a day maker? And we're going to talk more about that next time. That's as much as I'm going to say.
Oh, I like that.
But I have been practicing being a day maker, and I am telling you, it has been a wild ride. And I will tell you why next time.
Thank you, man. Appreciate your time. Appreciate your hearts and your efforts. And to you listeners, we sincerely hope this has made a positive impact on your day, and in turn will make a positive impact on your life. Thanks for tuning in, and we will see you next time on the Do Your Dailies podcast. Have a great rest of your day. Thanks for checking out this episode of the Do Your Dailies podcast. If you like what you hear and what we're talking about, please like and subscribe and share this show with your friends. That's the best way to support us bringing you more content. You can follow us on YouTube and Facebook at Do Your Dailies, and on X at DoYourDailies_. This podcast is brought to you by Hobble Creek Behavioral Health and is edited and produced by Motley Sounds.